Deck the halls with boughs of holly, fa la 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 na. 'Tis the season to be jolly, fa la 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 na. Da 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 da, fa la 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 la. Deck the halls with boughs of holly, fa la 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 na. Hello FPL community, Merry Christmas one and all, and today we're doing our FPL deadline stream for Game Week 18. Yes, that's right, the festive season is upon us, and we've got the deadlines coming thick and fast, as they always do this time of year. It is great to be back, and great to get you guys on the stream. Hopefully you can interact in the chat. Let me know your transfers in Game Week 18. Of course, it's the blank game week for Brentford and Manchester City due to Manchester City's involvement in the Club World Cup. They, of course, played the semi-final. I think they won the semi-final. Alvarez, I think, was on the bench, and Haaland not even in the squad. And now Haaland also not in the squad for the game in the final. So, yeah, not ideal for Haaland if you kept him, hoping he was going to be back for 19. Maybe he will be, but looks more likely like Game Week 20 when, of course, he has that Sheffield United fixture. So, interesting. Obviously, a lot of people have sold their Brentford and Man City players anyway. The likes of Burmo, who's also out for a few months. So, he would have had AFCON. He won't now have AFCON, but he's going to be injured anyway, which is a real shame for Cameroon. But also, some people still own Brentford players, like maybe Flecken on the bench or Pinnock. So then you've got that benching to do, because Game Weeks 19 onwards, your Brentford and City players' fixtures are really nice. So you're going to want them back if you own any of them. But as I say, they're not too many. Certainly Man City, not many people, apart from Alvarez, who some people have persisted with. But I think Alvarez is one where, obviously, blanking this week. The forwards, to be fair, this season, they're not really amazing. So it's kind of, you think of Alvarez with Haaland possibly not facing Everton. Could Alvarez still be a good long-term hold? Well, even in games that Man City have scored goals in, he's been frustrating and he's blanked. So I would say, Alvarez, his time was around Game Week 4. That was when I got him in for that nice haul against Fulham. Now, if I'm being honest, it was a nice start to the season because of the fact that De Bruyne was injured. But now that De Bruyne is coming back, I think that will lessen the appeal of Julian Alvarez. In terms of the situation with the rest of the Man City players, like who you're going to get outside of Haaland. I mean, it's every single week their defence concedes, so I'm not going to, say you should have a City defender. Certainly not anyone with a lack of attacking threat like a Walker or an Akanji. They just don't get attacking returns. Unfortunately, Cancelo is no longer, but back in the day, he was the one. Edison as well is just such a troll. People have been looking at like Doku. Obviously, he's had an injury recently, and Grealish as well has picked up form. So fair enough if you're looking at those, but just don't have the headache. Just have Haaland when he's fit. It's just so much easier. But Brentford players, you could look at like a Ben Mee or a Pinnock. Obviously, Ben Mee now is suspended, so don't go for him after his red card against Aston Villa. But certainly like a defensive pick for Brentford, or a Young Wissa if you really got the patience. Because without Burmo, Brentford just don't look like scoring loads of goals at the moment. Unless Neil Mopai can find a way to score some more goals. But yeah, we'll have to see. So, due to that, although it is a blank game week, it doesn't feel like a massive blank game week. So I would advise it's not enough upside to free hit in this game week. Like, there's not enough players who are missing that makes the free hit worth using, because a free hit is where there's a really big blank game week, in my opinion, you should use, because then you'll have at least like 10 teams, 11 teams maybe out, not playing, so then you can get more upside by bringing in players who will have a fixture. And then I always say when you use a free hit, it's harder to get points in the double game weeks, because you might be taking out really good assets with one game for players with two for the sake of having loads of doublers. But the point is, if you do it in a blank game week, you will always have a points increase because you're taking out players that won't have a fixture. So for me, that's where a free hit is just worth using. So yeah, if your team is looking a mess, maybe, but only if those injuries are for 1 week only, and we can't guarantee all of those. So it doesn't make sense free hit this week, in my opinion. Obviously team dependent, but majority of people shouldn't be doing it this week. There'll be bigger blanks down the line. But talking of blanks and, recent game weeks, let's catch you up on my game week score of game week 17, because we did a little video on Monday. I hope you did watch that. If you didn't, go back and watch it, because it was a really fun one, reviewing game week 17. And of course, kind of a quick chat over Game Week 18, which we'll get into properly today. We're also going to preview Game Week 19 and 20, because they're all kind of close in proximity. Now, whether or not we'll actually do previews for 19 and 20, probably not 19 on Boxing Day, we'll have to see, unlikely, but maybe 20, we'll have to see if we can get some videos out. But yeah, this is going to cover a few of those weeks in a row, really, because it's the festive period, it's also stacked together. So yeah, we'll be looking at that. But in that video on Monday, I talked about kind of briefly the Game Week 18 fixtures and thoughts then. Obviously, things have changed. The Bournemouth-Luton game, that was obviously great to see that Tom Lockyer has now been discharged from hospital, so very, very good news regarding that. Also, the Bournemouth-Luton points, the Bournemouth players' points were wiped, as we thought they would be, because they're going to, as with the Luton players, they're going to reschedule that game to be played later on. So basically, look at it as it being a blank game week. So obviously, from someone who transferred in Solanke, I don't mind. As long as Lockie is fine. But from an FPL perspective only, of course, it's unlucky that that's the week I bring him in for a -4. And Solanke did score, but, the safety of the players first important, of course. It goes without saying. And in terms of Solanke this week, well, he's got Nottingham Forest. So, of course, that was a transfer that, was for Luton, but it was for the long term as well. And also, because of that, our rank is updated. So, let me show you my points from game week 17 quickly. The auto subs, it was weird, I'll be honest. Wednesday night, they confirmed the auto subs on Wednesday night, which is a bit late considering, obviously they had time, they had to think about it and work out what they were going to do, fair play. But obviously the deadline for game week 18 is Thursday tonight. And so it was like, okay, game week 17 is over, finally, it's in the books. And you've got another deadline coming up, literally right away. So crazy stuff, really. But let me talk about my game week 17. 52 points, which on the stream on Monday, or the video on Monday, I think I said I had around 58. Because I was getting the 1 point from Mubama in for Isak, who didn't feature in the Newcastle squad, which is a real surprise, to be honest, because we thought he would be all fine before that game against Fulham, and out of nowhere he's injured, and then he also misses the game in midweek against Chelsea in the Carabao Cup. So looking at injury doubt ahead of game week 18, of course, Alexander Isak, but I had no clue of that before deadline for game week 17, so that was really frustrating. So Mubama came in for his 1-pointer. We'll get to Mubama and the bench mess in a little bit, but yeah, because of that, 58 down to 52, it is what it is. I got 51 technically, but then Mubama got me that extra point. But I took a -4. So, as I said, Solanke came in for Haaland, which was 0-0. So, what is not ideal for a -4. But the other part of the -4, Porro in for Mark Gay. That went really well. The Mask of Zorro, the Mask of Porro, legend Pedro Porro. What a player, honestly. I just had to get him in for that Forest fixture because Forest have been really struggling and they didn't look good from an offensive point of view. Obviously, a few times in that game, he got out of jail, not getting conceding a goal, Porro, because I think Nottingham Forest scored and then it was ruled out by VAR, and then there was also hitting the post a few times. It was crazy, but that's the thing of FPL. When you watch a game and you got a defender you brought in, you're hanging on to that clean sheet for dear life. But Porro did the business, got the clean sheet, and then the late limbs, last minute scenes, he gets given 2 bonus points. He was on for no bonus for most of the game. I checked the bonus right after the game's finished, and he's up to 2 bonus. What you'll have to see. Fully deserved, though, because he was doing so many attacking things in that game, and obviously got the 2 bonus points, so lovely jubbly. But, yes, -4, that did end up paying off, because Mark Gay obviously got the 1-pointer against Man City, so that was actually a nice gain, really, of 7 points, and then, of course, it's a shame about the Solanke business. But, anyway, we move into Game Week 17. Now, this is interesting, because I look at it and think, well, what are we going to say about this? I say about the 8 points, obviously that was then 4 points, 7 points difference, minus the 4, 3-point gain. So the -4 worked out in the end. But what didn't work out was my goalkeepers. Yet again, after Game 15's nightmare of, again, no idea about Areola, like, we have all faith that Areola will play and start in the game at Tottenham in Game Week 15. Out of nowhere, he's got a random wrist injury. Great. So I had Areola and Turner. Of course, then I have a problem for 16, so I think, well, let's do a logical transfer. Bring in a nailed keeper. He's going to play every week. And, Turner's not been starting games, so I have to kind of, sell him. And so I bring in Sanchez for Turner. What happens? Well, Turner starts out of nowhere, and he started the last couple of games. And then Sanchez, he concedes 2 against Everton, which maybe was a tricky fixture in hindsight, but in foresight, in pre-deadline, I always thought, it was a good run of fixtures. Sanchez will have long-term great fixtures, 6 in a row, something crazy like that. And yeah, he goes off injured at the end of the Everton game. Petrovic comes in. You think, okay, fine, that's not ideal, but it's only 7 minutes he missed, so hopefully that was just precautionary, right? They had Petrovic ready if they needed him. And then he doesn't play the next week, and he's ruled out for proper in the game I wanted him for Sheffield United. And what do Chelsea do? Keep a clean sheet against Sheffield United. Of course they do. And Petrovic has an absolute worldie. So, yeah. Sanchez, you absolute idiot. Why do I keep transferring players that get injured? I had Brian Burmo. I had Sanchez. I had, who was it the other week? Someone else as well. Just keeps on happening. It is absolutely crazy. And Areola of now, of course, as well. So, Sanchez, Burmo, there's definitely been more. But it just feels like I'm cursed at the moment. So, please, 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 the players I brought in for Game Week 18, do not get yourself injured, right? I'm saying it now. I'm not having it. It would be very Scrooge-like of you. Where's your Christmas spirit? But anyway, Areola, yeah, so he was going to be back for the game against Wolves because official FPL unflagged Areola and everyone was in the community saying Areola's fine this week, no worries. And I was like, oh, that's good because I don't really want to be doing a keeper transfer because I have other fires to put out, as I was going to get to for Game Week 17. So, left Sanchez on the bench. Oh, it's fine. Areola's going to be fit. No problem. He's got Wolves, not the most ideal fixture, but we don't mind. What happens? Again, he gets benched. And apparently David Moyes said, oh, well, he just needed a bit more time for the wrist injury to heal. Well, why have official FPL unflagged him then? They should have kept it flagged. I mean, it's just an absolute joke. So, we just don't get all the info from the managers, and they release the info after the deadline of the game week on the Saturday after the game. It's like, why didn't you just say that in your presser? Like, come on. So Areola didn't play, of course, in the Wolves game, and West Ham get a clean sheet, so just rubbing in. Fabianski back in favour after conceding 5, and then Areola plays in the game against Liverpool in the Carabao Cup and also concedes 5. So Areola is truly in the mud. I mean, he's got 1 clean sheet all season. Of course, I didn't own him for that week. I didn't bring him in till that game week 9 wildcard along with Turner. And he's got blank in every single week. And then the last few weeks, he's not played 2 of the time. So, absolute nightmare. Do I think he's going to be the number 1 going forward? Probably. Probably in the Premier League. He's the Premier League keeper. Obviously, it was good performance from Fabianski, but Wolves didn't look great in all honesty. Now, the fact that he's conceded 5 against Liverpool is not ideal, and I could see a Fabianski start against Man United at the weekend. So, therefore, I need a keeper. I genuinely need a keeper, but there will be a point, I think, where Fabianski will be back playing quite soon. So I wouldn't panic if you've got Areola as a backup, but I think you probably need a backup, is what I'm saying. Someone who's going to start every week, other than Areola, who's a bit, not as confident as we used to be. So yeah, 0-pointer against Wolves. Lovely jubbly, because Sanchez was, of course, my backup. Defensive-wise, very sexy, I have to say. For once, the defence comes in clutch with some clean sheets. Pedro Porro, we talked about, 2 bonus, lovely jubbly. What a legend. Absolutely love the guy. And going forward, Spurs fixtures are looking quite nice now. So he's just so attacking and picks up bonus points. He had a chance, I think he had at the Forest game and, got one cleared off the line or something or blocked. He could have scored. He pops up in the box with a shot. And yeah, he's just so good for bonuses. And really, he's a bargain. When you compare his price to Trent Alexander-Arnold, who's probably just as attacking at times, especially with, Liverpool clean sheets, not always sticking. The same goes with Tottenham, but Porro is about 3 million cheaper, so I just had to go for it. And I'm hoping that's going to really be a season keeper, really, because he's been so good. Saliba, finally Saliba and Gabriel coming clutch. It's been so long. Transferred him in game week 14. It felt like so long, at least. Game week 14 blank against Wolves was absolutely frustrating. Then they also did the same thing against Luton, and I was like, oh dear, what have I done doubling up on this Arsenal defence? Because I already owned Gabriel, who's been an absolute nightmare to own. But Saliba, I transferred him in for Wolves, and he blanked every single time. And I was like, what's the hype with Saliba? Like, he's supposed to be one of the best FPL defenders, but he was doing nothing. But finally, he gets a bonus point and gets a clean sheet. So, very, very nice. 7 for Saliba. The same goes for Gabriel. I just hope that going forward, Gabriel is nailed. I think he is, but it just always makes me a bit scared, I'll be honest. By the way, do you like my Christmas hat? Little lighty up antlers, yeah? Merry Christmas, one and all. But yes, I think defensively, going forward, Arsenal double up is still the best team to double up on. You could go for Newcastle, they also the second highest, I think. Also Liverpool, not far off. I think defensively, Villa aren't bad. You've of course got Man City, but then they always concede anyway. So, it is what it is. But I think that back three is pretty strong. And yeah, to get a lovely return of 6, 7, 8, it's quite poetic. It's all in the right order as well. It looks very nice indeed. Now, the midfield was a bit more hit and miss. We'll start off with a miss from Hwang Hee-chan against West Ham. Yeah, okay, doesn't look ideal, does it? The last couple of weeks, Wolves haven't looked great. Obviously, they got the result against Nottingham Forest. They got the point, but Hwang obviously didn't do anything in that game. Cunha outshone him, and I think against West Ham, even though no one returned, I think Cunha also outshone Hwang in the game at the London Stadium, because Hwang just wasn't getting the ball, he wasn't getting the service, and he looked very isolated at the top. At one point, I think they moved Hwang out to the central, and they put on Cunha on the wing, and I don't know if that worked really, but what I would say is Hwang has been so consistent for me since I brought him in on my Game Week 9 wildcard. So I'm not too fussed about a couple of blanks. Obviously, they've both been, against Forest and West Ham, not the best defences. But at the same time, the West Ham game was away, and we know Hwang is better at home. And also, I thought he was unlucky against Nottingham Forest to not do anything, and Cunha to get the goal. So maybe it's a bit of variance. We'll have to see. But obviously, he's got Asia Cup in Game Week 21, which I'm aware of. It's whether or not I sell him before that, or just sell him in Game Week 21, because the fixtures are a bit meh. They're all right, but then they got Everton in Game Week 20, which, to be fair, is quite nice. So I could hold him for that. Brentford before that, and then Chelsea this week. Now, Chelsea defensively this season have not been great, I'll be honest. So would I be surprised if Hwang returned at home to Chelsea? No, not at all. So I might keep in Hwang for this week, but we'll have to monitor the situation and maybe move him before 20, or maybe around 20. Because Everton, to be fair, are quite a good defence now, so that's not even the best of fixtures. Because I'll obviously have to sell him by 21. I won't have to sell Son, Salah and Hwang. I want to have to do it all in the same week, because then it'll be a minus crazy number. So yeah, I think Hwang could go soon, but not now. I think Gordon, legend, Anthony Gordon has been also, since the Game Week 9 wildcard, a legend. He came in for that and he was differential and he was doing so well. And then obviously the last couple of weeks before Game Week 17 he was blanking, and it was when everyone kind of jumped on the bandwagon and he was not as differential, but he did get a return. He started the game against Fulham, which I was very shocked about, to be honest. I just expected an auto sub to come in for him, Mubama. We'll get to that in a second. But in the end, what happened was Gordon started the game. You think, brilliant. He gets an assist as well. Lovely stuff. Attacking return for my midfield. And you think, okay, this is good. Going forward, they got Luton, Forest, lovely stuff. And so what happens? Well, they've got the Carabao Cup game at Chelsea. Caicedo just decides to basically clamp down on the back of his calf. An awful challenge. And probably what injures Gordon. We don't quite know. But anyway, he gets subbed off quite early on in the second half. And he just wasn't walking right at all. So not exactly ideal, is it? Because I would have wanted him for Luton and Forest. And to be honest, probably beyond that. I mean, with Newcastle, their fixtures do turn in Game Week 20. But I look at it and think, their attackers probably aren't worth selling. Maybe their defenders, if you think Trippier's not worth the budget, especially when we'll be thinking about Haaland back in 20 and possibly, moving some money around when Salah goes and and getting Trent and things like that. So I think possibly the defenders, but with the attackers, I'd still say they can score against anyone. And I think the Liverpool game as well. It's not a bad game. They've got Liverpool away and then Man City at home. That's fine. Villa as well, defensively not been great. So Gordon is just a long-term hold, but he can't be if he's out for game week 18's fixture. So it's a bit of a headache. Is Gordon going to be fit for game week 18? He's got Luton, great fixture, and if he does start that and hauls big, I'll regret selling him because I've actually taken a -4 this week. So if I took out Gordon now, it would be for a -8, which I don't think is worth it. I've talked about -8s before. They take so much luck for you to pay that back. A -4 is a bit more realistic to pay it back. And, I think ultimately Gordon did get flagged ahead of the Fulham game and he still played. So it's possible he could have this happen again against Luton. And I'm just hoping that it's not serious, because if it is, I'll have thought, I should have just done the -4. But to be fair, I'm not that keen on some of the midfielders I can bring in because I can't afford Richarlison this week. I thought about him against Everton, but I can't quite afford it with future plans to get Haaland back. So because of that, I have to kind of get a cheap midfielder around Gordon's price if I did replace him. And someone like Leon Bailey, maybe tempting at home to Sheffield United, but will he even start the game? We don't know. He's not got many minutes recently. And then we've got people like, I don't know, McGinn, the same sort of price. Again, I'm not sure if McGinn's an amazing FPL asset. He gets returns, but I don't know if it's sustainable. So it's one of these things, I just don't think it's worth a transfer because there's no really good ones around his price that I haven't already got. I've got Palmer, got Hwang, so it's a tough one. It's a tough one for sure. But certainly reassess, I think, and see what we do ahead of Forest. And just hopefully he starts Luton. And I don't have my auto sub, because then it would be Saliba in the auto sub away to Liverpool, which is not ideal. But, needs must, I suppose. And I just don't think it's worth the -8. So that's what I'm thinking at the moment. But we'll have to see. If we get confirmation Gordon's out before the deadline, of course, the deadline tonight is 6:30, ahead of that 8 o'clock kickoff, Palace against Brighton. So if I get news before deadline that it's confirmed Gordon is out, then I might move him on to Bailey or someone else around that price. But I'm not that keen on it because I want him back for Nottingham Forest if it's only a 1 week missing. So I just take the Saliba points if that happens. And hopefully Saliba, if he can just get a bullet header if Gordon doesn't play, that would be great. Son Heung-min blanked. Not expected, to be honest. I thought he would do well against Forest, but he didn't look great in that game. Blanked, and Spurs are just a hard team to predict when it comes to will they return, will they score big, or will they just be a bit underwhelming. They did get the win, obviously Kulusevski and Richarlison. They could be really good picks when Son goes to the Asia Cup. But I still feel that Son is the one. Obviously, before he's got that Bournemouth game, he's got the game as well in Everton in game week 18. So it's worth keeping Son if you already own, but probably not buying if you don't already own him. So, frustrating. But also, at the same time, he could be a captaincy contender for game week 18. We'll have to think about that. Obviously, there's nice fixtures for Villa as well against Sheffield United. So Ollie Watkins is an interesting shout if you own that kind of player. So, yeah, it's an interesting one with Son. He's a frustrating player, but I think he's worth it because every other blank, he will get that big haul. And so you think, oh, well, it was worth being patient with him. Palmer, 14-pointer, the king of the week, King Cole Palmer. Oh, you little legend. It's Christmas time, and forget the, presents and the coal in the sleeping bags and the sleeping bags, I should say, the stockings. Forget the coal. That's all rubbish, terrible Christmas presents. No, I'm talking about Cole Palmer, and that was an awful segue, but you know what I mean. Legend, absolute king. Goal and assist against Sheffield United. As we thought he was going to cook against Sheffield United, he did. Some people benched Cole Palmer. Are they actually out of their mind? It's one of the best assets in this season. Cheapest budget midfielder you could have that's done so well. Highest scoring, one of the highest scoring midfielders. Home to Sheffield United, and you bench him. Honestly, those that didn't get the auto sub points, you've got what's coming to you. Those that did, because of Solanke obviously getting his game cancelled, well, I will just say you are the jammiest of jam meisters. But anyway, Palmer, legend. And yeah, that transfer paid off after I made that in game week 16. Obviously, he did the blank against Everton. I was thinking, oh, this is a nightmare. What's going to happen now? He's got another yellow card. And don't forget, he is on 4 yellows along with Hwang Hee-chan. So please both of you, just leave it out. Stay disciplined, right? Be on the nice list this Christmas, not on the naughty list. Let's not get that suspension ahead of Game Week 19 because that would be really frustrating. Ultimately, yeah, Palmer's got an interesting game against Wolves this week. To be fair, it's quite a juicy fixture because Wolves recently have not great defensively, and Palmer's just a long-term hold. So, yeah, if you don't already own him, then I would definitely get him in, even with the risk of him missing Game Week 19 if he gets booked. Like, you're going to want him the week after that, so just get him in. Salah, captain, against Man United. We thought this was the banker. We thought this was the one that could never fail, as Gary Neville says. Even he probably thought that, but no. Instead, Manchester United decide to put in a defensive performance for once in their life. It's incredible stuff. I mean, it was an awful game. Maybe Man United weren't even that good defensively, but it was just an awful, awful football match. And so that was just going against logic. That's FPL this season. It's one of the toughest seasons for FPL results going against what you'd expect and what you'd try and, think is a good FPL transfer or a good captaincy. Nope. FPL 2023-24 says not happening. So, yeah, Salah, really unlucky. Well, not unlucky, but you know what I mean. On paper, it looked great. And I never thought about captaining Cole Palmer, I'll be honest. Like, against Sheffield United, anyone is a captaincy shout against Sheffield United, but I just wasn't trusting Chelsea up and down's form enough to captain one of their players. Maybe if they keep up a bit of a winning run, when they got Luton and Fulham coming up, we could look at a Chelsea captaincy. But the front two, I say front two, it's a front one really. Mubama, of course, was on my bench. So what happened is, right, pre-deadline, I had so many players flagged. Before up until Thursday, I had Areola and Sanchez flagged. Then on Thursday, I think it was, we got confirmation that Areola was unflagged. Of course, then still didn't play. But, I thought he was going to start. So I had one less flag to think about for at least official FPL's official, list. Thanks for that, official FPL, honestly. But Areola was unflagged. But then I also had flags to Gordon, who obviously had the injury he picked up after the Tottenham game. And then I think he was fine for the Milan game. And so he was back, unflagged, I think. And then he somehow managed to get himself injured after the Milan game. And then in a doubt ahead of the game against Fulham. And he ended up starting the game. So it's impossible to guess with Anthony Gordon. Especially Eddie Howe does give nothing away. But he got the attack and return. And now he's injured again. Typical. Also, we had a flag for Trippier. Because, of course, they had the suspension in game week 17. It was really not good timing. Like, Trippier and Taylor, why oh why was that the week you had to decide to do it? In a game week where all our teams were pretty bare. There was a lot of suspensions, injuries to Burmo, Haaland, and all those kind of players suspended with 5 yellow cards. And ahead of a blank, alright, maybe you'd say it's better timing that week than in game week 18 when we've got players blanking. But most of us have sold those players, right? So why couldn't a Trippier just been available for this week? And I could have had an actual bench to come in for my Isak random absentee. Obviously, Solanke was going to start, and he did start, and he scored, and then the game gets cancelled. So that was also wiped. As much as it looks like Solanke had a blank game week, he played, he scored, but it's not going to be on the data. It's not going to be on the records. So it is what it is. And yeah, I didn't have an auto sub basically for Solanke because Trippier was suspended, and I wanted to keep him beyond game week 17. Taylor was suspended, and the same thing goes. I wanted to keep him because, for cheap defenders, Taylor is one of the best. I think Lascelles with Botman coming back soon is going to be a problem. The same goes for Livramento. It's just under 4 million. There's not a lot of defenders you want. So I think Taylor's the best of the bad bunch, and so I wanted to keep him for future weeks. And so it didn't make a transfer, make sense making that transfer. So yeah, really frustrating. Isak was going to be fine, and he isn't. Like, if Isak would have been fine, I'd have at least had 10 men this week. But instead, what happened was, Isak didn't play. I had to rely on Mubama. And then because Solanke's minutes kind of got wiped, I virtually had 9 men. So, not ideal, because obviously you include Isak, Solanke and Areola. Technically, if you think about that, then it's 8 men, right? But Solanke did play minutes, so technically I only had nine men because only 2 players missed minutes. So it's just really frustrating. Like, I wouldn't have known about Isak or Areola before deadline, and apparently Isak's been injured for a few weeks and just been playing through it. So you think, why didn't they just tell that in a press conference? But anyway, that is what it is, and we go into game week 18 now, the blank game week. Obviously, it would be nice if I get a green arrow this week because, as I said, with the way the bench worked out, I didn't want to have to rely on it, and I had to rely on it, and my bench is better in game week 18, but ideally I'd like Gordon to be fit for the game against Luton. So let's look at our transfer thoughts and team selection for game week 18. So this is how we're lining up then. We've got the nice little away kits graphic as well, which you can find on Google Chrome's extensions. Just search FPL away kits. But here you can see a new man has arrived in town. Yes, Martin Dubravka. Now, I did tweet out about this today, and ultimately, thank you for those that replied to it because, I look at it and think, yep, with hindsight, maybe I should have got Martinez, maybe I should have got Leno, but I didn't think about the fact that maybe Newcastle buy a new keeper in January because obviously Pope is injured, Karius is just not very good, let's be honest, and Dubravka is the only one, right? So now Dubravka will be there thinking, I left to go to Man United because I wasn't first choice. Now he's happy to be backup because, he's not going to get minutes anywhere else. But now that he's number one, he'll think, why would I, be at a club if I'm not even going to get minutes as the number one when the number one is out? So I don't think Newcastle will buy a new keeper in the window. It's possible, of course it is, but I think I'd be very, very unlucky. I think for at least a few weeks, which is when I want him for Luton Forest, and then for the fixtures after Villa, that's nice fixtures, and I think he'll at least have those games. We'll have to see about January. But obviously, Martinez was tempting. I thought about him just because Sheffield United in game week 18, great fixture, pretty much a nailed-on clean sheet, you would think, but you never know. This is FPL for you, so it can surprise. And I also thought about Bird Leno, who was, to be fair, the first tweet I tweeted out at the start of the season, not even the start of the season, pre-season, I said, thought about Leno as my starting keeper to start the season, and really wish I'd gone for it because he's the highest scoring keeper now. So, yeah, it's funny how things work out because at the first few weeks you thought, those fixtures are awful, you're not going to get for Leno, and he ended up getting points in games you wouldn't expect. Obviously, a few kind of weird hauls. I think he saved a penalty or something. So, yeah, it's one of those things. But with regards to keeper, Dubravka just made the most sense to me because it's the cheapest, so it leaves me money in the bank for future weeks so I can get Haaland back and all that stuff. And also, Newcastle, I still feel, are up there as the best defence in the league. I don't think Villa keep enough clean sheets for me to go there. Martinez gets save points, but Villa just don't play for clean sheets. They play such a high line, and they concede in a lot of games. So they're not bad defensively, Villa, but I also think Newcastle are just better. The fixtures, obviously, in 20 to 22 aren't great, but that's why we've got Areola. So the thing I was saying about earlier with Areola, please make him fit and ready to start in 20 to 22, because Liverpool, City, Villa, obviously you'd just play Dubravka if I've got no option, but it's not exactly ideal fixtures for a keeper. But I say that, even in tough games, Dubravka can get points, right? He has got save points in the last few weeks. Obviously, he was on for a nice 10-pointer against Everton, and then concedes 3 and still gets 2 points. So it's not the end of the world at the end of the day. He gets save points, but it's a good defence that I'm investing in, and I had to sell Sanchez because he's not back apparently till February. It's what it says on the official FPL website. Whether or not that's true, whether or not he'll be back sooner and I'll just be absolutely trolled like with Turner, we'll have to see. But I have faith in Dubravka. Trippier's also in there, away to Luton. Now, I'm a bit worried about Trippier because he is very expensive and he is a bit of a cash cow for me to get Haaland back when he comes back in either 19 or 20. And I'm just thinking, can I get the same decent amount? Obviously, no one can cover Trippier. Trippier's always going to get attacking returns, but can I get a decent level of points by just getting someone like Dan Burn, who is pretty much nailed to play now that he's back from injury, scoring as well in the game against Fulham. There's a goal threat. I like it as a good pick because people like Lascelles, people like Livramento are just not as nailed on for minutes when Botman comes back. And obviously Fabian Schär got injured against Fulham, but he will hopefully not be out for too long. So that means a bit of a headache for Newcastle defenders who is going to play. And I think Burn is pretty much nailed alongside Trippier to play. So I do think that's possibly worth the downgrade, but the fixtures aren't great for Newcastle. So if I don't sell Trippier in 19 when they got Forest, then I'll be bringing in Dan Burn for a pretty bad fixture after Forest. So it kind of makes you think, if I want to get Burn, I kind of need Haaland to be back for 19, so I do that move to allow Haaland. But if I do end up getting Haaland in 20, then I'm going to have to think of another defender for 20 to afford that, to maybe sell Trippier, because how else am I going to afford it? I mean, I could sell Salah in 20, because of course he'll have AFCON the week after in 21, but I look at it and think Salah could return in any game. Like, selling a week early with home to Newcastle, yes, that's not an easy fixture, but Salah at home is an absolute joke, so I'd probably prefer selling Trippier, to be honest, in game week 20, if Haaland is going to be back, back for 20, we'll have to see, but that's what I'm thinking. So I could just roll the transfer in 19 and have nice 2 frees to get Haaland by 20. So yeah, with Trippier, I'm a bit concerned that he doesn't actually start the Luton game. Now, that's probably unlikely to happen, but just based off recent performances, obviously, he's not been going through the best of times. The game against Everton, he's responsible for 2 of the goals. The game against Spurs, he got absolutely torn inside out against Son and wasn't exactly looking great. And then he is responsible for the goal at Chelsea, where he just completely has a howler of a mistake, heading it back to Dubravka, but with not enough power on it, and so Mudryk scores. And then in that same game, penalty shootout, misses his penalty quite badly, and Chelsea win and get through to the Carabao Cup semi-final, and they're facing up against Middlesbrough. So, I don't know, I look at it and think, Trippier is in not the greatest state of mind, but he's still a premium FPL asset, and we know how good he can be, and it's Luton. So it doesn't warrant taking him out, I don't think, but it's one to think about for future weeks, whether or not you can move him down to another Newcastle defender. Taylor has got Fulham this week. Now, I don't have a lot of faith in the Burnley defence. They've not kept clean sheets this season. And Fulham, to be fair, can score goals, especially at the Cottage. But I just earmarked this fixture for Taylor to start him, because with Taylor, he does kind of do well in the kind of better games. Bournemouth, Burnley, against Sheffield United, I remember. He got a clean sheet. So it is good when it's good fixtures. And he also got an attack and return as well against Sheffield United. So maybe some attacking upside against Fulham, even if Fulham do score with someone like Willian or Wilson or whoever scores, if that's just, something to take from it. But obviously he's got Luton coming up as well. So I like Taylor as a cheap option, to be honest. And the fixture looks right this week. When Saliba and Gabriel face Liverpool away, you would expect a Liverpool goal, and you'd expect that, maybe they get a 1-pointer, 2-pointer. Whereas Taylor, fixture away to Fulham with Jimenez out with his red card in game week 17. It's funny, in the Form is Temporary podcast, which you can still listen to, remember, do get on Spotify to check it out, the latest episode, which covered kind of the end of 2023. We looked at 17, 18, 19, etc., kind of future planning, and I talked about Trippier as my kind of problem for future weeks, but I also talked about Jimenez, and in that game, sent off, I had him as my one of my top 5 diffs for game week 17/18, and now, of course, he'll be out for game week 18, so absolute shocker, but who could have predicted that red card? So yeah, hopefully that will help Taylor's chances of a clean sheet. And then Pedro Porro at home to Everton. Now, Everton, to be fair, have been really good recently. I think the 10-point deductions actually really spurred them on. But what I will say is Pedro Porro doesn't need a clean sheet to get returns. Like, he can still do it, so it's fine. I'm gonna play Porro in every single week I can. He's just so attacking and so good, so love him. Obviously, Everton defensively is still, I'm not convinced. Like, they can keep clean sheets, okay, against Forest, against Burnley, but this is Tottenham we're talking about. They score goals, and at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, I think Spurs will probably score a few here. So hopefully Porro's involved with those and gets a clean sheet as well. The midfield then, we've gone for the big 5 midfield. The big 5 that we've always had, well, not always, but for a long time we've had, since the Burmo injury and bringing in Palmer. That's the midfield we've stuck with, because we went basically with all of those players on wildcard outside of, we had, before Burmo, we had, I'm trying to think who it was now. It wasn't Bowen, was it? No, it was it Saka? I'm going to check this because it's going to annoy me if I don't know. Or possibly, no, it wasn't a cheap player. I'm pretty sure it was a decent player. If I just have a quick look, people, bear with a sec. Yep, so on the wild card, my 5th midfielder, of course it was. How could I forget? The legend, Maddison, but then he got injured. So, yeah, ultimately, 97 points in Game Week 9 for that wild card. Dan Burn was in that team back then. But the midfield has not changed a lot. Obviously, Burmo has come in for Maddison and that sort of thing, and Palmer's come in for Burmo. This is the thing I was talking about. Maddison got injured, right? So many injuries recently, it's happened to me. and also the Isak injury this week, and Gordon in this week. So it's just so many injuries. But what I will say is, I'm gone with the same midfield because I'm just hopeful that Gordon starts against Luton. It's not guaranteed. It's a very possible chance that he doesn't start. And if he does get benched and comes on for a one-pointer, that will be frustrating. But to be fair, I've got Saliba and Gabriel on the bench as my backup, which is not great away to Liverpool. So I do really need Gordon to start, please. Because I'm thinking about Gordon. If I take him out, it will be a -8. Just makes it hard to pay that back. When Bailey, okay, he's not a bad option, but apparently some people have said about Bailey's injured. I'm not sure about that. I think I've heard that from an unfortunate source, but maybe that's true. We don't know. But ultimately, there's not a lot of that, options around that price bracket. If we just look now, and if I have to sell Gordon, then I'll be honest, I'm pretty devastated because I've loved this guy. He's done so well for me, but I guess it is about kind of knowing when to move on. With the prices then, around that price, for midfielders, I'm just having a little look. So, teams selected by total points, midfielders, around that price. So you've got people like, McGinn, Ward-Prowse is 6.1, but he's kept blanking recently. Douglas Luiz, I could look at Douglas Luiz, but again, I'm not so sure on him because although he gets penalties, outside of that, I'm not sure he's going to be consistent FPL point scoring. I don't hate the Douglas Luiz shout, but then they got Man United. Yeah, I just think if you're going to own an attacker for a Villa, just get Watkins, and that's all you need. Like Diaby, headache. Like Douglas Luiz, not a great pick in my opinion. Maybe a McGinn, but Bailey, I don't know. I just think Watkins is just so clear of all of them that it makes it hard to kind of justify someone else. But yeah, Andreas Pereira, 5.3 million. I mean, he doesn't get many goals. He gets maybe a few assists. Got Paqueta at 6 million, but then Man United's fixture this week, I don't know. They're not great fixtures for Paqueta, and I don't think he's that consistent. Adingra, well, he's off to AFCON, I think, so maybe not. Alanga, no. So this is what I'm saying. Like, there's not really many options. Maybe outside of the Fulham midfielders, like Harry Wilson, I don't mind that. But again, is it really a spectacular upgrade? Because if Gordon is back for 19, then I want Gordon back. So it's like one of these things. So I think I just have to ride it out with Gordon. But Hwang Yi-chan is there as well. Chelsea, I think it's a good fixture because Chelsea have not been great defensively for parts of this season. Obviously, they were good last week, but that was Sheffield United. And Petrovic, yeah, good performance in the Cup, but that was, penalty shootout. So whether he can get a clean sheet away from home, he's still yet to do that for Chelsea. So we will see. We will see. Palmer, Wolves away. Yeah, Palmer's very, very tempting. Obviously, I hope that he doesn't get booked. I would think about maybe captaining, but nah, I think it's got to be Son or Watkins. Palmer, though, yeah, just please keep yourself ready for those fixtures because Palace, Luton, Fulham. Obviously, if he gets suspended for Palace, all right, not the end of the world. At least he's back for Luton, Fulham. So do not get yourself booked in that Palace game. That would be a nightmare. Salah against Arsenal. He's got a great record against the Gunners. He's the Egyptian king. He doesn't need to have a good fixture to do well. And obviously, it's a huge game, a title race, clash. So you'd back Salah to, turn up in that big game. Captaincy, probably not, though, because Arsenal are one of the better defences this season. So just go with the better fixture. But certainly Salah's a captaincy option any week. Son, vice-captaincy. Now, I've thought about the captaincy, but I'm thinking Everton have got better recently. As much as I think Everton probably don't score, and I think that probably Spurs put a few past Everton, I still would prefer targeting Sheffield United than I would Everton because they have had an upturn in form and maybe they get a clean sheet. I don't think Mikalenko will be back in time. We'll have to see. But I would be very surprised if Everton did do that. So I would say Son, great asset this week. Obviously great in game week 20 as well against Bournemouth. But then we can sell in 21. And then Ollie Watkins is my other transfer in. So Dubravka in for Sanchez and Watkins in for Alexander Isak. Now, this is a risk. I know this. It was a headache. Do I sell Gordon? Do I sell Isak? But the way I've done this is let's sell the player who I think is most explosive. Least explosive, right? When Isak's done well this season, obviously he's done well. But Gordon has been a bit more predictable of when he's going to score the points. Isak scored in games you can't predict. Like Villa at home,
first week, gets like a brace, then he blanks for about 6 weeks in a row, then he gets a goal, then he gets an assist, then it's just very hard to call, and it's hard to call whether he'll start, really, against Luton, Alexander Isak. I hope he doesn't, but even if he does, right, he's been absolutely woeful. That transfer in from Watkins out for Isak, when I thought Watkins was out, confirmed, in game week 14, and he ended up starting and scoring, and then scored again against Brentford in game week 17. Oh, honestly, I'm so glad to have you back, Ollie. You're back in. That temporary kind of fixtures off for Newcastle, Everton, Luton, Tottenham, Fulham. In that time, Newcastle decided to just play awfully. I mean, it's just so unlucky. And Isak decides to just get injured ahead of the Fulham game out of nowhere. So, yeah, he's blanked in every week. His time is gone. Wilson probably I prefer, but I just don't know how long Wilson's going to be starting. And so Watkins is essential this week. I would go that far to say he was always going to come back for me this week because captaincy contender, and I think the best contender, because Sheffield United are awful defensively. Watkins, he does kind of tick along, which is not exactly what you want for a captain shout, whereas Son, Salah, they're a bit more explosive. But let's not forget the Brighton game. Let's not forget the 23-point haul. If he could do that again, that would be great. Or the 22-point haul, whatever it was. But at the same time, yeah, he doesn't haul a lot. So Sheffield United, anyone against Sheffield United can haul on their day. And Villa playing so well at Villa Park. So form, fixture, that's what we're going for. Then Solanke, he has also done well for me. Last week, technically, even if it was a blank on the system, he scored. So, but Forest this week, obviously, it's a big talking point. Steve Cooper's sacked. Very controversial. Nuno Espirito Santo's come in. I still feel Forest concede a few there. So, I think Solanke could be a really nice pick this week. Wouldn't consider it for a captaincy just because I think it's a bit unreliable. Like, we don't know Bournemouth are going to score hatfuls. They don't often do that. But Solanke's pretty reliable to get, something, right? So for returns, pretty good. For a captaincy, probably not. The bench, though, is Areola, Saliba, Gabriel, and Divine Mubama. Now, Saliba and Gabriel, away to Liverpool, I think they could both concede. If Liverpool keep, a clean sheet and then Arsenal can keep no clean sheet, then I'll think, okay, right decision. If it goes the other way around and Arsenal keep a clean sheet and Liverpool don't score, I will be fuming, and that will mean that Salah blanks and I'll have 2 clean sheets on the bench. But if Gordon doesn't play, then result. Though I kind of look at it 2 ways. But yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one. I think you have to bench them really. I mean, when you have Tsimikas and Gabriel, that's an easier decision. You start Gabriel and bench Tsimikas. But without me having Tsimikas and with Taylor having a good fixture, I think it's just worth benching them. And if they need to come in for Gordon, so be it. I think a Saliba bullet header would do me very nicely if Gordon didn't play. But Gabriel as well, where's his attacking threat gone? It's been absolutely crazy. Mubama as well, he's my boy, Mubama. Obviously, no, he's not been playing games, and he got me the 1-pointer. Obviously, came on for the last 3 minutes against Wolves. Whatever, he's just been third bench. But to be fair, it has helped me with a benching headache every week because I've had one player at least I know I can bench. When I come up to the next few weeks and I have a kind of all 8 attackers, really good options, it will leave me with a lot of benching dilemmas. So that will be painful. But for now, I'm happy with that. Areola on the bench, also Man United. I think Areola doesn't play, to be honest. I just hope he's back starting games by game week 20 because that's when I'm going to need him. But yes, that is the team locked in. -4 taken. Dubravka in for Sanchez. Watkins in for Isak, captaincy on Watkins, and let's get that green arrow for game week number 18. Blank game week 18. Hope you have enjoyed. Get your thoughts on the video in the comment section below. I would say as well, have a Merry Christmas. This will be the last one we do before Christmas, and of course, we might think about a Boxing Day stream. I'm not sure though. We'll have to see. We will have to see. Probably not, to be honest. But we'll be at least back for game week 20. Probably stream if we can get round to that. So because of that, let me tell you some of my kind of upcoming plans to give you the lowdown on game week 19 as well. So as you can see here, if I just show you this, this is Plan FPL. I have to say, every single time, every season, these are the guys to use for transfer planning. Honestly, I like FPL.team. I like draft hound, but this one is the one because it's got great aesthetics and it's easy to use. So Dubravka, we know, playing Luton, that's my team, bish bash bosh, right? So game week summary, Sanchez out for Dubravka, Isak to Watkins, bish bash bosh. -4 taken, but we can also plan for future weeks, which is absolutely brilliant. I think official FPL probably should have done something like that in the game update this year, but they didn't. So what can we do? So if I go back to Plan FPL for a second and show you this nifty little website, Game Week 19, this is my team. So this is what I'm thinking. If Haaland is back for Everton, then Dan Burn is in for Trippier. That's what I'm thinking. Because I'm thinking you're going to want Haaland as soon as he's back fit. Now, with him not being in the squad for the second game of the Club World Cup, I think away Everton, him being fit to start, is unlikely. So it's probably just worth riding that fixture and hoping that Haaland doesn't play. And anyway, it's Everton who defensively have been a bit better. I mean, I never thought I would say that against Man City, but still, I think maybe if Haaland's an injury doubt still, you could swerve him for one more week. But then if that's the case, then I'll not sell Trippier in 19, and I'll just maybe sell Trippier after that when he's got Liverpool away. Or alternatively, sell Trippier against Newcastle, but Salah against Newcastle. But I don't know, it's a tough one. So that's one option. If Haaland's back, do Trippier to Burn and do basically the cheapest forward in the game up till the most expensive Haaland. It's pretty incredible. So yeah, look, at the end of the day, that's a nice looking team. It's another -4, which is crazy. If Haaland is fit for Everton, I will have to take my third -4 on the spin. I mean, this is set this week. -4 is the second on the spin. The first since Game Week 4 where I've had successive -4s. I'm just taking hits like there's no tomorrow. It's hit season, all right? 'Tis the season to take hits. And this game week, if I did do those transfers and Haaland was fit, it would give me a benching headache because obviously if I'd have benched Mubama, I'd have been starting Hwang Hee-chan against Brentford. Now, obviously, Arsenal got West Ham as well, so maybe not fixture to start a double defence in, but maybe one of them. So I was thinking bench Gabriel, play Saliba. Bowen probably scores in that game. I'd love to get Bowen back in, but again, I don't quite have the money for that. I thought about Richarlison for Gordon in game week 18. Thought about Bowen, but I just don't have the money for me to get Haaland back. So I can't really get Bowen in, even if I wanted to, unless I sold like Son against Brighton, but I wouldn't do that. So ultimately, what I'm getting at here is, if I bring in Haaland, I'm going to have to bench Hwang. And Brentford away is not the worst of fixtures, but it's also not the best, so it's hard to judge with that one. The week after that one, I probably will want Hwang for Everton, though, but it depends on whether I think it's worth selling Hwang in 20, because if his form is off by then it means I don't have to do 3 transfers in game week 21 to make all the kind of Africa Cup of Nation and Asia Cup transfers out. So yeah, that's kind of my current team for game week 19 if Haaland is fit. Let's show what it would be if Haaland isn't fit, because that is obviously a very real possibility. So it would be Mubama here, and I would also have Taylor. Taylor would be on the bench. I'd probably play Hwang against Brentford because you've got to back the attacker over the defender most weeks. Let me just show you again. So yeah, that's the current lineup without Haaland in there. Obviously, I wouldn't then do the Trippier to Burn transfer, so that would just reset. And to be honest, if Haaland's not fit for Game Week 19, I'd probably just roll this team and have 2 free transfers to try and get Haaland back by 20, because you would imagine he'd be back for that fixture against Sheffield United, and, you know, it would be unlikely that we'd want to not have him for that fixture. So, Dubravka, Forest, good fixture. I think hopefully Newcastle can keep up the clean sheets the next couple of weeks in Game Week 18 and 19. And Forest have not been scoring goals recently. We just said that with Spurs clean sheet in Game Week 17. Trippier as well. Hopefully does well in Game Week 19. Porro away Brighton. Now Brighton do score goals, but so do they concede. So I think Porro could get attack and returns there. That's fine. Saliba West Ham. I said about West Ham could score, but hopefully Saliba gets at least a bullet header or something. Midfield, Gordon, Forest, great fixture if he's fit, of course, by then. Palmer Palace, good fixture. Salah on the captaincy. Now, obviously, if Haaland's back, then I might have to think about him against Everton. But I think even if Haaland is there, I might still captain Salah against Burnley, because Burnley this season, especially at Turf Moor, have been awful defensively, like genuinely terrible. And I think on Boxing Day, just go simple. Go with Salah. Like, don't overthink this one. the fixtures are a bit interesting for the captaincy, but it has to be Mo, right? It has to be Mo on Christmas Day, or sorry, Boxing Day, I should say. But Sonny against Brighton, yeah, nice fixture. Brighton are pretty leaky defensively, so wouldn't be surprised if he did a nice haul there. And Hwang Hee-chan against Brentford, again, fine. I'm just kind of squeezing the last juices out of Hwang Hee-chan, Son and Salah before they all go off to AFCON and Asia Cup, respectively. So Watkins and Solanke, yeah, they're probably the two strikers to own at the moment, so happy to have them. And Watkins, Man United that week, not a bad fixture at all. Like, Man United have been dreadful. And Solanke, Fulham, pretty decent fixture, I think. The bench obviously is a bit of an issue, but I would just have Gabriel first bench. So I would put Gabriel there, and I'd put Taylor second bench, and then hope that nothing happens really to Gordon. Because if I do end up selling Gordon in game week 19 rather than 18, which is looking the likely play, then it means then I will be able to kind of not have to start Gabriel. Like double Arsenal defence. If I get a late injury for Gordon in that game week 19, round of games, and I don't know about it, then I'll have Gabriel subbing in for Gordon at home to West Ham, which is not great. So I kind of want Gordon to be fit for 19 in an ideal world, but let's see if he's after the Luton game. But yeah, that's the situation. That's the plan. So it's probably Haaland / Burn / one of the cheap defenders like Lascelles or something. If Haaland's fit. If he isn't, roll for game week 19, and then a quick kind of thought ahead of game week 20. Sorry, just to clarify, my vice captain this week, probably between Son and Solanke, most likely Son. But game week 20, this is where it gets interesting, because by this point I'll have 2 free transfers. So if there's the situation we said about where Haaland is probably coming back this week, I'll probably wait until 20 anyway. Now, obviously, Mubama's not going to be my captain. Don't you worry. It will be the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Erling Haaland. Now, you'll think, how can I afford this? Well, the plan was my cash cow was going to be Trippier, right? And Liverpool away is not a good fixture for Trippier. As much as he's going to be a player I want back, the way to think of it is, thank God for AFCON, because by game week, is it 23? They got Luton, and so ultimately, that's when I'm wanting Trippier back, and that's when Salah's at AFCON. So, use the Salah money to get Trippier, and then when Salah comes back, sell Trippier again. It all makes sense. But ultimately, yeah, I could also sell Salah in game week 20 this week, and then keep Trippier on my bench, and then just have Trippier for the long term, which is definitely an option. Because then I could also do, like, if I kept Trippier, I could start Trippier or start Gordon ahead of Solanke. Like, there's no bad fixture really for Trippier, but it's just not an ideal fixture, obviously, Liverpool away. So I think that's a consideration for me to do. But Haaland probably comes in, and also I would imagine if I do stick to that plan, Trippier comes out. Now, it was going to be Dan Burn, obviously, in game week 19, but if Haaland is only fit for 20, then my replacement for Trippier is probably most likely going to be an Aston Villa defender. Either an Aston Villa defender, a Chelsea defender, or an Arsenal defender. Now, I can't get an Arsenal defender, really, can I? Because most likely I'll be getting Saka or Ødegaard in for Salah, or maybe for Hwang or one of these people, or Son or whatever, when they go off to AFCON or Asia Cup. And I look at it and think, well, that would mean I'd have 3 Arsenal defenders. That's too risky, and it will lock me out of Saka or Ødegaard. So I think defensively, I'm not going to go Man City, even if it is Sheffield United, okay? I can't quite get there because it's just too much pain. What I did think about, though, with a nice couple of fixtures coming up, is a Brentford defender. Because that will be obviously after the blank game week. Brentford, they're a bit ropey defensively, but they still have good fixtures. Palace, Forest, Tottenham, alright, not ideal. But then after that, alright, Man City, not ideal. Then it's Wolves. You could just bench them in all this time. But those 2 fixtures in 2021... not the end of the world, to be honest. So that's what I thought about. I mean, I don't love it, to be honest, but the fixtures for Aston Villa, long term, probably better. So it's probably the play, to be honest. If Cash is like playing by that point, because at the moment he's just not nailed enough. But if I get in like a Pau Torres, if he's fit by then, or a Konza, that could be a good idea, I think, for game week 20. So that's the other plan. Trippier to probably a Konza or something like that. But yeah, that's the plan, people. So hope you have enjoyed this quite long one. I know it's been about an hour long, but hope you have enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one, which will probably most likely be a Game Week 20 team selection, just to confirm if I do bring in Haaland by then. And I'll go through, of course, my Game Week 18 points, Game Week 19 points, and lovely stuff. So yeah, hopefully you did enjoy that. I might even bring out a Boxing Day one. You never know, but we'll have to see. I'll see you in the next one, people. And thanks again for watching. Bye-bye. Hasta la vista.